Alright, in this video I'm going to be going over a tutorial of my new 3-point light controller tool. So I'm going to drag this back into the scene, and you can see it created 3 nodes, 3 lights. So let's jump into the render view and see what's happening. Default value is going to be Studio, and these are your preset selections. With the tool you get 11 custom presets that I made, and then I actually have a custom user one at the bottom for you to make your own presets real quick and fast, as opposed to having to go through each individual light and bounce back and forth through a bunch of different nodes. Okay, so at the top of the page we have these notes, which are just some notes in case people don't watch this tutorial, and they're missing some important information. They don't know why something's doing what it's doing. Okay, so there's also a much more in-depth kind of help manual I made on the last tab. If you have any more more in-depth questions, but that's a lot of text. I didn't want to put it right here. Okay, so going through the presets, there's 11 that I've already made for you, and they're fully adjustable with the controls further down on this parameter sheet. But let's just go through them and see what they look like right out of the box. So there's Studio, which is supposed to kind of give a studio look. There's Warm, which is kind of supposed to just, I don't know, give some warmth to the view, to the scene, I guess. You got Reds, which is kind of supposed to be a dark, moody red kind of look. Dramatic, it's kind of a little bit darker. Has a little bit more kind of an eerie vibe, I guess, to it. Cinematic, just called it this because I see a lot of these kind of green, teal tints in a lot of film and TV, especially in cinematic scenes. Moody, this is just kind of a greener color palette lighting setup. Then there's a retro action figure. I started naming some of these after the actual images that I was pulling the color palettes from. So I actually like this one quite a bit. Then there's Pineapple, again from some colors on the pineapple. Sunset, Neon Lights, Alaska, and then the last one is your custom user, which you can control yourself. With this tab, I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But let's just go through some of these controls real quick. I'm going to leave it on retro action figure to show you. You can adjust all of these individually. So on your master controls, this is controlling the actual node itself. So this node, you'll notice is right in the center, right where you create a node. It's, a null. That's where it is. So if you start moving this, it will actually move all 3 lights along with it. So if you rotate, say, around here on the y-axis, you'll see it's now rotating around your scene. If you want to readjust it, you can obviously do that with all the other parameters. You can move it. You can scale it. It all works. Oh, my bad. That's not what I want. So it all works. Then just resetting it all to the default values is going to get you right back where you're supposed to be. And now I'm going to skip this for a second. But we're going to start down at the controls. And you'll notice that it's intensity add. This is because this doesn't represent the actual intensity of the lights. It represents how much you're adding or taking away from the preset's intensity. So if I take, for example, light 1, here, I'll just get this out of here real quick. Yeah, here. Okay. So this is going to be light 1. It's your backlight. this will be light 2. It's your kind of your front left light. This light's meant to just kind of illuminate the scene a little bit. Then this light over here is actually at more of an angle, and it's kind of your it's called front surface. You'll see it's kind of meant to highlight some of the surface textures and geometry here, just to get a better idea of what it actually looks like and the surfaces. Hopefully you'll get some highlights on some of these edges and stuff. The backlight's supposed to kind of illuminate the outside of your objects and kind of give the viewer a better idea of what the actual object looks like. Okay. So back in here, you'll see these are all controlled to their corresponding light. So light 1, as I said, was the backlight. It's going to be this guy. If I just go back to my camera, you can see it's going to be this guy over here. If I drag this down, you'll start seeing that it affects the intensity of the respective light, and this works for all of them. So you can start dialing in different looks. For example, like, I don't know, that's kind of cool. It's not hard to play around with these and get some kind of interesting looks, especially with some of the cool color palettes that I ended up using for some of these. And then you can switch back and forth between these, and it will still work. So setting these all back to 0 will be the default value. That's kind of cool. They can go outside this bar too. 100 isn't the max. You can just middle mouse button click and keep dragging, or you can just enter in your number or whatever, whatever you want to do. So let's go back to here, and then you get spread, which is essentially like your barn doors around your light. So at a value of 1, this is locked, so you can't adjust these. All they're there to do is actually just display what the actual spread value is, because this again doesn't represent the actual value of the spread. And not all of them are always set to 1. So like, for example, let me find, yeah, so on the dramatic setting, some of the barn doors are different, and it's just like that on a lot of them. So essentially the spread kind of works like a spotlight. So you get your barn doors, and at a value of 1, they're all the way open. And at a value of 0, they're all the way closed, so the light's just shining straight. And for a better example of what this does, I'm going to turn the rest of the lights off. And then I'm going to just pull down the spread of the first light. And this one, you might need to hit refresh on your viewport, or your Redshift render view, and you'll see the closer this gets to 0, the more it's just shining the light straight. So it's almost like it's coming through a window now, instead of it's shining as a source. And you can see at 1, it's just this, it's a lot softer because it's shining light in every direction from the surface in 180 degrees. Also, you cannot go above 1. That's another reason I had this, is because even when you adjust these further up, if the value is already at 1, it's not going to go anywhere, because it's the spread value is just a value between 0 and 1. Okay, then you got your temperature controls. So you can basically mess. I'm going to put this back to 0. So you can mess with the temperature of your lights. Now temperature is essentially the lower the temperature, the more red something is, kind of, and then the higher the temperature, the more blue something is in purple at its basic. Again, these aren't the actual values of the temperature. These are just the adjustments you can make. So pulling it down is going to make it more red, and pulling it up is going to make it more blue and purple tinted. Then you get your rotations. So if I wanted to, I'm going to close out of this real quick. I can start rotating the light with this. So I can actually change the actual way these look just inside this one node. I don't got to bounce around a ton of different nodes and parameter settings to get these how I want them. This is probably something you'd want to do more in here in the actual viewport, so you can kind of see where they're going. So you can mess with the rotations of all of them. You can mess with the positions of all of them. And then you can actually adjust the actual scale and the way the lights look in here too. So again, these are all just adding to the current values of them. So basically, I mean, so these aren't the actual scales or values. They're just adding into them. And one thing you don't have to worry about is throughout all the presets, the positions and the scales and the rotations of these never change. So these are always going to be right here where you're seeing them. Aside from that, you can, for example, drag this back and forth, make this bigger or smaller, and that'll affect quite a bit here. You may have to re-render this scene in order to get those looks. Okay, so that's just basically the functionality of this guy right here. It's just the controls and everything. So one more thing that's I think is really cool is the using volumetric light in here. But like it stated up here, in order to actually use this, you're going to have to make sure it's on in your Redshift render node. So I already have it on, but you'd have to go in here and check this button on for it to start working. There's some settings in here that you can mess with if you want, but usually I just go with the default settings. Okay, and so now once you do this, you can start playing with some of these. Right away, you'll notice it doesn't do anything, and that's because you're actually going to have to re-render or refresh the IPR in order to see anything. Redshift does not update this automatically. Now what this is the volumetric intensity, or basically how much it is involved. And you can see this kind of fog now we created. You can go above 1, but I kind of just have it set on a 0 to 1 basis because I don't like overdoing it very much. But you definitely have that option. You have each individual light's contribution in here, so you can play around with this, get some cool looks without having to dive back and forth between a ton of different parameters on 3 different lights. And then over here, oh, that's not what I want. Over here you have your samples of the volume, and this is how many times Redshift is going to sample that volume. The more samples, the more detailed and accurate it's going to get. You really won't notice it most of the time for small stuff like this. I guess if you're seeing it as massive or something like that, there's a ton of different lights and things going on, you might want to up this a little bit, but usually 16 is fine. So I have that set as the default value, but you can increase that from here if you want. Okay, and then lastly, this part is pretty cool. You have your custom user. So on the preset, just go down to custom user, and then it will start using this new tab called custom lighting setup. And in here, I have everything kind of set up to some default values, but you can start playing with things. So for example, let's make this guy red. I don't want that. Let's maybe I don't know, drop it down to like 10. Did I set all these guys back? No, I did not. Alright, I'm gonna reset that. And make sure that all these guys are okay. So you can start playing with things. Just kind of start setting different colors, different intensities, temperatures. Now these are the actual temperatures and intensities. So these right away, without adjusting anything else, these are like the final values that you'll have for your lights. So I'm just gonna go back to all white real quick. Okay, and then one nice thing you can also notice is that all these controls still work. So, for example, adding volumetric rendering here still works for the light, because all this is doing really is creating an actual preset under this option. So all these still work. So if you want to rotate stuff, or you want to switch between a custom preset you have and one of the ones that I provided, you're more than welcome to do that. One thing that I have set up in here that's kind of nice also is just this text box down here. There's no real like super important reason for this, except for okay, I just actually added this because I just realized this would be kind of nice. So one thing that I like to do a lot is basically take something from something like Adobe Color, which is their website where they share a bunch of different cool colors and stuff like that. So say I like this color and I just want to download it as a JPEG or an ASC or whatever file type I want. I just download it. And then in Houdini, I'll hop into this color node, because one thing I find that's weird, and I'm probably just doing this stupid somehow, but the color values here are in a very different values than Houdini's system, because Houdini's a 0 to 1. Even for RGB, it's weird. I don't get it. So I essentially just download the JPEGs, or maybe take a screenshot of it or something like that. So I go to the folder that I save it in, and then it was this one. And then once you import it, it's going to come up right here, and you can double click on it. You have to have this, you have to select this button, because its default is going to be here. You want to select this icon, and you'll get the option to pull up a photo. And from here, you can select a color. And so now you'll have this color in here. Nice thing also is that now that you're in this mode, it'll automatically set to that. So you can just go here, 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 and here, and now you have your Pantone. So now I'm going to pull this guy back up. Put this backlight back at 50. I'll just take some values from here. So now that you have this in here, you can essentially just copy these values over. Or if you wanted to be quicker about it, you could, I guess, you could drag this whole thing and then just hit current channel value. So you can kind of, I don't want to do that. You can kind of play around with stuff. And then on top of this, you can set the base values of all these things. I mean, you don't even have to have all these guys on. You just set the intensities to 0, or you could go into the lights themselves. And so this text box down here is more so if you want to, if you don't feel like doing this method, and you're comfortable getting your colors values from here or something like that, and you want to just copy and paste it down here. Say that was a value that I liked, I can just hit that. And so that way, if you're jumping between a bunch of different colors and stuff, you don't have to go back to your web page, back to here, and then back, and then since you can only copy and paste one thing at a time, really. So it's just there for if you need somewhere to write, really. It's not that crazy. But yeah, that I think pretty much wraps it up. Down here, you can still access all of these settings if you want. There's quite a few that I didn't basically adjust or anything like that, but the ones that are affected by the control node, you'll see they're locked, so you cannot edit them. If you want to edit them, you have to right click and then unlock parameter. I did this just so no one accidentally messes up any of the relationships inside of the control node. So everything should work the way it works for me. You can change whatever you want here. As long as it's not affecting these values, it should be good to go. And then up here, if the lack, for some reason, of transform, render, and all that, those tabs bother you, you can go into the edit parameters, show invisible parameters, and then you should be able to see your transform, render, and misc folders. And then all you have to do to bring these back is to click the invisible button and uncheck it, and then you'll see your transform, render, and misc tabs pop back up. Alright, so that about sums up this tool. Let me know if you have any questions. I will be responding to people. Thanks.